G'day folks, so session 5 today on the E3 culture of leadership model. Again, for those of you who haven't tuned into any of my previous videos on this, let me just do a recap of what we're talking about here. And that is that my team and I from 2003 for a period of about 13 years were involved in helping our clients to develop what we ended up describing as a culture of leadership within their organization. A culture of leadership is defined as one where a critical mass of people within the business will consistently display acts of leadership. They'll do so autonomously, right? Regardless of whether they have a management title or not. So whether they're in a leadership role or not, what our research found in the beginning and was then subsequently borne out as we worked with many clients over that 13-year period was that when a critical mass of your people are prepared to step up and commit an autonomous act of leadership, you end up with a very high performing organization, right? One that delivers spectacular results from receptionist to the sales director to the IT person to the warehouse manager, you name it, right? High performance all the way around. And that's achieved by getting your employees to a state where they are engaged, at least in principle, to go on the journey, whatever that journey might be. And I'm recording this series at the moment because we find ourselves in distinctly different times, and getting your people to go on that journey is probably going to be a little bit harder than it's ever been before. Having your people remain engaged is vitally important now, more so than it's ever been, right? So it's about having them be engaged to go on the journey and then feeling enabled that they can perform their role to a level of excellence, and then ultimately feeling that they are empowered to pursue and hopefully even realize their full potential. So, this is what we're looking to try and achieve. And the way that we do that is by, if I click on this slide and yep, hopefully it changes over, there we go, is by then you engaging, enabling and empowering your people to go on that journey. So I've covered these 3 drivers so far, along with a piece that I did on the Australian cultural norms. So if you haven't seen any of these, check out the other videos on my YouTube channel, and that'll kind of bring you round the clock, as it were. The one that we need to focus on today for this session 5 is about you appropriately allocating initiatives, tasks, and resources. Right. So we find ourselves in strange times. In the previous sessions, I've said that it's really important that you shrink your focus for the moment, that you as the leader, potentially even the owner of the business, depending on who you are watching right now, that you need to be helping your people have a degree of certainty about the week ahead, the fortnight ahead, maybe the month ahead, at the very most the next quarter, the next 3 months. Because anything past there really is quite hypothetical for most. I will again acknowledge that there will be some businesses right now where you are absolutely thriving because what you do is something that's very much needed right now. And so you will be thinking out in longer term horizons. However, there's probably even now increased demand and pressure on a whole bunch of people in your business right now to be delivering. You may have more drag on you right now than you were experiencing as little as a month ago. So it's really important right now that you are appropriately allocating the initiatives, the tasks and resources. So let's focus on that word appropriately for the moment. Right. So appropriately is about striking a balance between who is the right person to be doing this job right now. Right, and yes, people will have job titles and they're in roles which have an expectation that they perform, certain functions, and you may not need to change that. But one of the really important questions I like to pose around this particular piece is, to what degree are your people doing what they are best at, as opposed to simply struggling to do their best? Right, there will be some people right now who are floundering. There will be some people out there right now whose minds are not completely here at work. They're nervous about their loved ones. They're nervous about their kids, or they're nervous about themselves. They're nervous about whether the business is viable. So their mind is getting overwhelmed. And you need to be conscious of that, whether you like it or not. right? Now is not the time to say, leave your personal shit at home. Bullshit. Right now, you need to be focusing and understanding, where are my people at? You need to be more empathetic than you have probably ever been if you want to have your people remaining in an engaged state of mind, right? So you need to think about who's the right person to be giving this task to right now. What you really need to be careful about at the moment as well is not creating any additional overload, right? Overwhelming people right now will be much, much easier than historically. Okay, and I'll make reference to something that it doesn't have a lot of science around it, but hopefully you'll kind of get the gist of it. I often refer to this as the bruised ribs syndrome. And if I poke you in the ribs, obviously I'm going to get a reaction from you. If your ribs are bruised and I poke you with the same amount of force, your reaction will be disproportionately larger. Okay, right now, most of us are walking around with metaphorical bruised ribs, right? And so our sensitivities are heightened, our reactions may be larger than life, not like normal and what we're used to. And so this appropriate word is all about understanding that and making sure that the tasks that you're giving your people to do aren't overwhelming them. So again, one of the ways in which you can do that is to shorten the time frame, right? Shorten the horizon in terms of, okay, listen, over the next hour, I just want you to focus on this, right? Get to this point, and in particular, talk about outcomes. So if you're giving somebody a task to perform, if you're giving somebody an initiative to start working on, talk about it in outcomes terms, right? So where I want you to be. So if an hour from now, come back to me and let me know where you're at with this, right? So it's about shrinking time horizons. If you start giving somebody a bunch of stuff to do that has got like a time horizon a week out from now, it will overwhelm them at this point in time. So bring it down, short, sharp, controlled, give me certainty in my mind about what's expected, and don't ask me to think too far out. The other piece that goes with that, is whether or not you're allocating resources appropriately. And the key resource, and I've just kind of touched on it, the key resource most people need right now is time, right? So don't be over demanding of people in terms of your expectation of deliveries and deliverables coming back to you in a short time frame. Yes, you're under pressure. Yes, you need to pivot. Yes, you need to deliver something to a client, whatever it might be. The work needs to be done. Be as generous as you possibly can without being, ridiculous about it in terms of how much time you allocate to somebody for this particular task. It's about really being much, much more considered than you might ordinarily be. Right, it's about even doing a degree of planning yourself and understanding, okay, we're here, we need to be here, ideally we need to be here in this time frame. What's the worst case scenario? What's the latest that this is going to be, still be acceptable in terms of when it needs to be delivered, and when we need to arrive at that point. And then importantly, think through, okay, what actually needs to happen here? What resources are going to be needed? Who is the best? So there's a lot of thinking that needs to be done right now in advance of allocating the initiatives, the tasks, and the resources. Okay, lots of thinking on your behalf, right? The plan is where the result is made, right? Yes, it's got to be executed, but if they're executing on a fundamentally flawed plan because you haven't thought about the various resource needs or the time demands or the fact that things are getting to you more slowly now because the supply chain piece is running a little more slowly, because of all the various restrictions. Or conversely, I know one client that I've been talking to recently who has been inundated with stuff arriving much more quickly. And some of that's to do with the fact that there's no traffic on the roads. And so trucks are, being able to kind of move quite freely and deliver stuff to his location at least. So I just want to encourage you to think through all of that, okay? In order for me to be engaged to go on the journey with you, okay, I need to understand our current reality. I need to see that the objectives that you're setting for us to achieve right now are purposeful and realistic. I need to be absolutely confident in the strategies and the plans that you've put together that are going to enable us to actually deal with the situation and get to these objectives. And in particular, I need you to have thought about all of the things that could and will go wrong. And as a consequence of that, I then need you, I need to accept that the initiatives that you're setting for us, the tasks you're asking me to work on, the resources that you're giving me to do that with are reasonable, okay, not unreasonable. Not a perfect world right now. Everybody knows that, but that's what we're looking for. All right. Cheers, everybody.